Good evening. Today's date is September 1st, and today was supposed to be the day where our tenant was supposed to give us the keys to our property, and we expected her not to leave. So today is also the day where our lawyer filed a tenant holdover procedure. So it's nighttime, and as I'm relaxing, trying to have a glass of wine, and as I take the bottle out the fridge, I look at the mail and I see something interesting. So I've never been sued before, but the letter looks suspicious because it's a very different letter. It's thicker. It looks more like it just looks important. And upon opening it, we get sued. Well, it's essentially a court summon, but let's call it being sued. Really, essentially that's what it is. We have to show up to court. And who's suing us? Our tenant is suing us. The deadbeat is suing us. So what is she suing us for? Well, let's look at the paper together. By the way, the court date is for the 3rd. So I receive this thing on the 1st, and I have to show up to court on the 3rd. It's like, what? Stupid courts. Anyway, so let's go through this together. I skimmed through it a little bit, and I was like, this is just ridiculous. So no, let's look at it together. So the name, Christina. I'm not telling you her last name because I don't want to be sued by her. So Christina is suing us for it's a rent escrow complaint. Essentially, what she's saying, or what she's telling the court, is that she lives in the slums. She lives in an area that is deemed dangerous for her well-being, right? And also, for you to file a rent escrow, the court assumes you have good faith, but deadbeat tenants don't have good faith, because nothing stops her from actually putting the motion in. Nothing stops her from getting the court to get us out of our house and get there in front of the judge. Because just because she filed this paper does not mean that the escrow is going to be granted. All right, so let's look at it together. So in her complaint, all right, she says there's a defective front door, a broken bedroom door. That's the first time we're hearing about this, by the way. All right, and I don't know anything about doors being life-threatening, but okay. It says also if she has notified the landlord. She says yes. She's notified the landlord in person, by phone, and text messages. Let me tell you something, right? If you're going to be so bold and put a lie like this on paper on a court document, you better fucking have the proof in the pudding, right? Because if we go to court and they don't ask for the fucking text messages, I don't know. What am I going to do? Anyway, so according to her, she told us we haven't received anything at all. As a matter of fact, she stopped all communications ever since we told her that she needs to pack her shit and get the fuck out, right? And but wait, it gets even juicier. So this is what she's asking the court. Now, mind you, she hasn't paid rent out of retaliation since July, and her rent is $1,450. She's asking the court to get her rent reduced from $1,450 to $750 for broken doors. What? Then she says she wants all of her rent back. Who the fuck is this? Then she says, she asked the court, quote, this is from her because she wrote it. The landlord and his family are running a scam and should have to pay me for me to move. All your tenant advocates out there, right? Listen to this dumb bitch. The landlord and his family are running a scam and should have to pay me to move. She ruined my night. She ruined my night. Let's continue. What else she said? Oh, okay. So here's the interesting thing. This thing was filed 8/9/21. That is the exact same date that we sent her an email reminding her that her tenancy, she needs to vacate the property on September 1st and to leave the keys of the property on the windowsill. Of course, she replied and said, I didn't agree to this illegal eviction. She pretty much says, fuck you to us. And that same day, she went to court and filed this. So the same day we sent the email, the 8/9/21, it's the same day that the complaint was filed. So now we're being summoned in a few days, and we just got it today. So let's look at what the inspector. Let's look at. Oh, I'm sorry. So there's no inspector yet. Okay, I get it. So she filed a complaint, and in the complaint it asked, "Did you tell the landlord?" Of course, she lies. But I guarantee you, the court is not going to be double checking that because courts are incompetent. Courts reward bad behavior because that's what courts do. So there she is. So okay, so right now it's all the complaints checklist that the inspector is going to be checking. And that is, front door doesn't close or lock. Never heard about this. First time I hear about this. They broke my screen door. Number one is not your fucking screen door. Alright? Get that in your fucking head of yours. It's not your fucking house. Okay? And number two, we didn't break anything. You're not allowing us in the property. Then bedroom door hanging and falling off the hinges. How is a bedroom door falling off the hinges? Are you swinging off the door like a fucking ape? How the hell is it hanging off the hinges? Doorknob fell at. How does a doorknob fall? Guys, how does a doorknob fall off the door? Clogged kitchen sink. First time I hear about that. Backdoor weather strip. Her tenancy was in March. I don't understand how there's so much damage over since March. Who lives in this house? Water running constantly. Handwriting sucks, by the way. Water running constantly. Contained leak into basement sink. I don't know what the fuck she's talking about, but apparently, the same day we tell her to get the fuck out is when she goes and complains to the court. We haven't heard about this, so we'll see how that goes when we actually go to court. I think that's it, right? Yeah. We see how that goes when we go to court for the tenant holdover and see what the judge asks. I expect that judge to ask for proof. If that judge doesn't ask for proof, then he's fucking useless. I was going to drink some wine today. It's an awesome wine. It's called J-Lore. Awesome wine. It's one of the best red wine I have had. And it's not expensive. It's awesome. It's nice and dry, and it's like it has this pucker aftertaste. It's delicious. So here goes the wine. And I'm probably gonna need a few hours to cool off from this. So, but it's okay. I've read about, in my personal research, I've read about rent escrow and how tenants or deadbeat tenants use rent escrow as a defense for evictions. And a lot of the times what they do is when the tenant or a professional deadbeat tenant would jump ahead and they would start creating false problems. And they'll start creating false problem a lot. Or they'll break stuff. Sorry about that. Or they'll break stuff and then ask you to repair, and you'll be like, I don't understand. I just repaired it last week. What do you mean repair? They are I don't know how to explain this, but they a lot of deadbeat tenants use the rent escrow as a defense mechanism to stay in your property without paying longer than about 6 months time, right? Because I think retaliation defense, it's about 6 months You cannot non-renew the lease, or you cannot evict the person or whatever 6 months after a rent escrow approval. But from what I've read, the rent escrow needs to be approved. And a lot of the time the tenants will damage the property. So when the inspector comes in, it gets granted. The double-edged sword on that is that if the rent escrow gets approved, then the tenant has to pay all the backed up rent up front. But as I was reading, it's not a perfect science because the courts are idiots. And so I think they don't enforce that. I think they will grant an escrow. Even if you go there and be like, I'm broke, I have no money, they'll still grant the escrow without you paying any money into it. Because the escrow, like let's say if you have a non-paying tenant, the escrow is good. Because then if the escrow gets granted, the tenant needs to pay up to date, right? So a non-paying tenant who initiates a rent escrow is good for the landlord and it's bad for the tenant. But this is on paper. This is what the law says. Yeah. Okay. Look, I got sued. How many people can say they got sued? I got sued. It happens. When you play at a certain level of game, you get sued. Okay? And so we got sued. And we're going to tackle this and handle this appropriately. So I will get back to you. The court date is in a few days. So we'll go to the court date. We'll see what the inspector comes up with, and then I'll report back with the findings. Got sued. All right. Bye. Say hi to Nefsis. She's like, I just had a fig, and so she's like, what are you eating? Whatever. So we had rent escrow today, and it's kind of late. We're exhausted. It was a very long day. So I had to cancel work. I have to cancel my schedule with my clients to attend it. Christopher had to go to work after we came back. So enough about the PDs thing. That's just the nature of the game, okay? That's what happens. So look, so here's how the escrow went. Let me give you the scenario. So when you arrive to court, what they do is they separate you into vaccinated or unvaccinated. And fortunately, we are vaccinated, so our line processed a lot quicker. And once you arrive, you wait. The court is always late. I mean, the time was 1:15. I think weeks got started at 2:30, and I mean, that's no surprise, right? And then once we got there, I'm going to fast forward this a little bit for you. So we were the last ones. And so, of course, not only do we start late, but we're the last ones to be called. So we get the judge that is most tired and it's most irrational, right? But that's not an excuse because you're a judge. And if you're going to be a judge, you assume the responsibility, right? Just like if you're going to be a parent, be a damn parent. Anyway, let me not sidetrack. So the purpose of the rent escrow is to establish if you are a slumlord or not, to establish if the tenant is living in deplorable conditions. So it's up to the court to decide whether or not the situation is life-threatening. That's why the court sends an inspector, a court-appointed inspector. So here's where it gets interesting. And here's where I'm a little bit pissed. But before I tell you this story, I want to share the story of this woman at the escrow court to give you a perspective. And so this woman is 75 years old and she'd be living at that apartment complex for like 15 years. And she's been not a paying tenant, no complaints and whatnot. And for the past 2 years or 3 years or so, she complained to her landlord that she was smelling something odd from the kitchen, like sewer. And the landlord was like, whatever, whatever. Old lady, shut up, right? That's a horrible landlord, by the way. And so, long story short, she couldn't use her kitchen. It smelled like sewer. It's sewer, meaning like toilets, you know? And apparently the building is an old building, so it wasn't up to code. And the pipe system, the water that you drink was in the same system as the water you shit in. I don't know how that works, but it's an old building, was not up to code, and he never fixed it. So yes, some of the sewer water, I guess, was leaking into the drinking water. I don't know if I understood very well. People were wearing masks, so it was kind of hard to hear people's stories, you know? And we were all the way in the back, right? So from what I heard, this is what I heard. But that's irrelevant because she had proof, she had pictures. One night, her kitchen just exploded. Sewer water, bathroom water was leaking out of her kitchen faucet. And the reason why I guess they figured out that they share the same piping is because when she turned the water off, the drinking water, it wasn't turning off. And so she was like, I don't understand. Water keeps coming out. And she spent the whole night trying to not have that sewer water inundate her apartment. And eventually, I mean, she's 75 years old. And eventually she couldn't do it. And she just went to bed with sewer water inundating her apartment. She was so tired, she went to bed and she woke up in puddles of sewer water. Now, that is not only gross and disgusting, and that landlord should be jailed. I mean, that landlord should be punished beyond punished. How do you not know the status of your building? How do you not know if your house is up to code? How do you not address, remember guys, when I talk about you should always track your investments. If you're going to make an investment, whatever it is, you need to understand it and know everything about it, right? How do you not know? That landlord knew that the building was not up to code. He just didn't care. He didn't want to spend the money. He was being greedy. And the judge pretty much stated that her living conditions were life-threatening, and he canceled her rent. Not only did he cancel her rent, he ordered backed up rent. So, I mean, even if you cancel the rent, I wouldn't want to live in a place like that, right? Oh, and by the way, that landlord didn't show to court. So that landlord was not only a piece of shit, but that landlord was disrespectful to the situation itself. Now that's a deadbeat landlord. We are not deadbeat landlord, but that story was heartbreaking to me. And when I was looking at that lady, and I was like, that could be my mom. That could be you. Like, I was heartbroken by her story. And then you have our story. So here is where you're going to laugh. So we show up. The judge looks at the paper that I discussed to you earlier, and he looks at it and he's like, okay, that's odd. So then at that point, there's an inspector. The inspector went to inspect the property to see if what she claimed was true. And at that, and we didn't know what the inspector findings were until that day, until that time, right? So here's the finding. I'm going to put it up here so you can check it out. Take a minute and look at all the items that are deemed life-threatening. And then you're going to laugh together, right? Look at those items deemed life-threatening. Look at them. Isn't it funny? Broken doors. How are broken doors life-threatening? Like, how is that even permissible in rent escrow? And you know what? When we saw that, we thought the judge was just going to dismiss it. The judge was just going to be like, you know what? This is not what rent escrow is for. Case dismissed. But no, the judge actually he didn't grant the escrow, but he ordered us to go fix the doors, which we have no problem fixing the doors. The issue is not that we were not going to fix it. The issue is that we didn't know about it. And the judge didn't ask her to prove that she told us about it. He just took her word for it. Took her word for it. I mean, I granted we were the last one, so maybe it was tired. But I hate to use that excuse because you know what? You're a judge. You're in a position of influence. You don't have the luxury of being lazy. Otherwise, don't be a freaking judge. I hate mediocrity. It's something that just eats at my soul. I hate half-assedness. I hate mediocrity. It just irritates me. If you're going to commit, do it. Just do it. Get it done. Anyway, so that's that. So now we have to go and fix broken doors. And then because the doors are actually the tenant's responsibility financially, the court doesn't allow us to charge the tenant. So essentially, she stole from us. That's it. She brought us to court just so we can fix items that's her responsibility. The judge granted her that. And then now we have to spend money on her situation, and we can't even charge her for it. Oh, and then we have to go back again to court, okay? Just to entertain, just to see if we fix the issue. So not only do we have to take time out of our job, so we, lost wages. I have my own business. So if I don't work, I don't make any money, right? So I lost wages. I'm not on a salary. So I lost wages, and I'm going to lose wages again on the next court date. And she's probably, I don't know. Anyway, so that's our rent escrow stuff. The judge made a mistake. The judge should have dismissed it right there and there. The judge should have said, none of this is life-threatening. Please go away. Landlord, fix this. Give her the bill, and please go away, right? You're wasting my time. That should have been a done deal. But he didn't do that. He entertained her nonsense. He didn't even ask for her to prove that she communicated with us. We told the judge. She didn't tell us. He just rolled his eyes at us and say, can you fix this? And we're like, yeah, we can. All right, go fix it. And then here's the court date, and you can't charge her. And we're like, what? So it's a situation like this that creates a domino effect. And I'm explaining to you why. Because now, what's going to happen now we know that the court is capable of failing us through due diligence. So because we are investors and we're not in the business of losing money, so here's how things are going to change to accommodate that potential. The rent is going to go up. Simple as that. The rent is going to go up, and the rent is going to go up for the next tenant. And right off the top of my head, this is how you do it, right? So you take the invoices. So, okay, a tenant probably would take you a rent escrow once a year, right? Let's say. So potential of being brought to court for rent escrow is one time a year. And potential of a judge granting the same stuff that this judge did to us, possibility. So to cover our asses, then you take you assume to fix those doors is probably going to be, let's see, $150 to fix all those stuff. You double that because, why double? Well, because I want to recoup my money, right? Number two, inconvenience and loss of wages, 100%. So we're going to double that. That's $300. And then you take that 300 divided by 12, and that's like 20 something dollars, right? 25, 20, whatever. You do the math. And then so rent now goes up for the next tenant by 20 something dollars. And then who is the reason why we have unaffordable housing? Investors create the economy. Investors, people like us, small landlords like us, when we're small fries, but people like us actually are the ones who stimulate the housing market. Without people like us, without people that has the capital to buy a house and put it as a rental property, you don't have any houses. The government is not building houses. They're not doing it. So who's footing the bill of creating housing for the tenants? It's us. So if you make it like a nightmare for us to do it, then we're going to raise the rent. And if you want to make affordable housing, then you, government, you take on the bill. We're not in the business of charity. And I track my investments. And it needs to do well. Otherwise, it's a bad investment. Anyway, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I am mentally tired. I'll live. So that's that. We have to go to court again. We're going to fix those things. Let's see if she let us in. We're going to fix all the mess. And I just can't wait till December, which is a tenant holdover case, to get her out. This is a headache. But guys, you know what? Don't be deterred from being a landlord. Our biggest mistake, learn from our mistake. Our mistake is that we failed at the vetting process. If you do a good job at the vetting process, you won't go through this. Make sure you get the best tenant in there. Don't go for deadbeats. Don't believe what people say, right? Don't believe what they say. It has to be rooted in truth and fact. And let them prove you that they are deserving of consideration. Pure, cold, hard math and business. The bank doesn't do it for you. So why would you do it? Right? When your mortgage is due. There's no, I don't feel well. Can I pay it tomorrow? No, there's none of that. So why? So why would you do that? She can sense my frustration. I'm a baby. Guys, thank you so much. Like, subscribe, and Nefties. Come here. So, no. Speak. Like, subscribe. Bye.